What? I'm on the grind till I get it. On the grind, nigga. Mind on my digits. Mind on my money. Loud got me lifted. I'm on the grind till I get it. What? Yeah. I'm on the grind, bitch. I'm on the grind. What? I got the 9, bitch. I got the 9. What? I wanna shine, bitch. I wanna shine. What? Get mine, I'ma get mine. What? I get mine with the skill, boy. Right. Fuck 12, fuck a cell, boy.
Welcome back to the IBFP.
A couple months ago, he said, what he say? It's gonna happen end of 2019. Did you not say that? Did you not say that? That's what your promoter said.
This is what I'm saying.
I read it all.
This is what I'm saying. This is what I read it all too.
That's what your promoter
Terrence
said.
Crawford, wait till he get a belt.
Yeah.
He ain't did nothing in the welterweight today.
You
When
have
he get
did
a belt,
nothing.
you want to
You have
go
did
over there. Keith Thurman want to go over there, and now y'all want to say, oh, I ain't fought nobody, but I got a belt now, so why?
Okay. Sean Porter got a belt too.
So now
Sean Porter got a belt too. Sean Porter. So why am I go to easy road?
All truth passes through 3 stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. And third, it is accepted as being self-evident. You know, the great thing about history is that it's recorded. And a lot of the things that happen, people remember not through memory, but through records. So as we dig into this, we can see the truth and what's actually going on develop right in front of our eyes. So let's start. 4 years ago, Errol Spence Jr. calls out Amir Khan, Keith Thurman, and Sean Porter. And that's an interesting thing. And this is a quote from Errol Spence Jr., and this is according to Boxing News 24. Everybody's name: Amir Khan, Sean Porter, Keith Thurman. I mean, anybody who is going to get in the ring. Like Floyd said he'd vacate one of his belts for us to fight. So, I mean, why not? Fighting on the biggest stage, MGM Grand, on pay-per-view, on Floyd Mayweather's co-main event. I mean, how big can it get? Now, this is an interview that Errol Spence Jr. gave to Fight Hub TV. So if you look at this, Errol Spence Jr. and, the PBC and these guys were calling out big name fighters. They were calling out Amir Khan. They were calling out Keith Thurman. They were calling out a Sean Porter. But the interesting thing about this call out is 2 of the names that we see on this list are the 2 names that people are saying, hey, Errol Spence Jr., he should wait before the Terrence Crawford fight. He needs to try to unify with Porter and Thurman first. The funny thing about that was 4 years ago that he made these initial call outs. 4 years ago, he called these guys out just for a fight. That doesn't even complicate things with the belt. It's just wanting to fight these guys. 4 years ago. And look how long it's taken to even get near a Sean Porter fight. And still the Keith Thurman fight, we're still a long ways away. And yet you'll have people come out and defend this type of thing. And these guys are all with the same promoter at that time. 4 years ago, they were still all with Al Heyman. Look how long it's taken to manifest even the possibility of these fights coming to fruition. 4 years ago. Think about it. Think about how long that's taken. Think about Errol Spence Jr., being with this promotional company, and you say the PBC isn't a promotional company. It really is. They have shell promotional companies like Mayweather Promotions and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's very interesting to see how long it takes these fights to come into fruition. But then when you see the Terrence Crawford fight, you have the same people telling you, hey, just let it marinate. Let these guys unify. There's every excuse, but as we know in history of boxing, a lot happens to where some fights never get made. An additional thing that Errol Spence Jr. stated was, he said, I'm not avoiding anybody. I'm not ducking anybody. I just want to fight young lions like myself. Interesting thing about that is you want to fight young lions like yourself, and you want to fight Keith Thurman. You wanted to fight, the Sean Porter, and that was great. You even wanted to fight Amir Khan, which Terrence Crawford got ridiculed for fighting. But it's good that he wanted to fight the guys around his same age, the guys in their prime, the guys with him. I understand that. I get that. But then why? Would you call out Manny Pacquiao, who's an older veteran, who has no belt, and you're already established at welterweight, instead of pursuing the Terrence Crawford fight that's right in front of you. Because realistically, Terrence Crawford fight will do a lot more for you than Manny Pacquiao. See, it's not like you're beating Manny Pacquiao in his prime, at the height of his pay-per-view stardom, at the height of his career, where you can garnish a big name and get a massive payday. You'd still get a lucrative payday, but it wouldn't be the best payday. So at the end of the day, the Manny Pacquiao fight cannot do for you what the Terrence Crawford fight can do for you. And Errol Spence knows this, because with Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford, that's a massively successful pay-per-view because of the fan interest surrounding it. And on top of that, he becomes a pay-per-view star, he becomes a pound-for-pound fighter, and he unifies the belt. There's no need for a delay. But let's keep going. Forbes.com printed an article, and Keith Thurman indicates on Twitter that he'll fight Errol Spence Jr. And the interesting thing about this is, he stated, "I see you, young buck. Be patient. Your time is coming. One time." Now, that was January 21st, 2018. And there's talk that Keith Thurman will not look to fight Errol Spence Jr. until possibly 2020 or 2021. And this was 2018. This is the same thing that we've heard Errol Spence Jr. say to Terrence Bud Crawford. You have to keep these things in perspective. Oh, I have these other fights. And there's always reasons or excuses. Errol Spence Jr., in a different article printed in 2018 by BoxingScene.com, Crawford needs to worry about beating Jeff Horn before me. And this is a direct quote from Errol Spence. That fight is going to happen. Hopefully he beats Jeff Horn and gets that belt. And like I said, I want to be the undisputed welterweight champion of the world. So when he does get that belt, we can make it happen in the future. So if you could make it happen in the future, why are you not aggressively pursuing that right now? Because now it's the future. The future is now. Because, people forget. They act like he never called out Manny Pacquiao. He prioritized Manny Pacquiao over Terrence Crawford. Then he said, you know what? Once I couldn't get the Pacquiao fight, let me prioritize Sean Porter over Terrence Crawford. There's a developing trend. And this is the same guy said that he's not ducking anybody. He only wants to fight the young, hungry lions like himself. And here's another quote from Errol Spence. "I see Terrence Crawford different at 140. I don't know how he's going to do at 147. 147 is a different type of animal. We're bigger, we're faster, we're stronger. A lot of guys at 140. I don't know how he'll do at 147. He hasn't proven himself at 147. So if you got a guy that hasn't proven himself at 147, that's potentially vulnerable, why wouldn't you fight him? Why are you worried about how he would do at 147 compared to 140 and about proving himself when you fought Mikey Garcia, who moved up 2 weight classes? The fight before he's fought Errol Spence Jr., he was fighting at 135 against a Robert Easter Jr. But you don't care about how he would perform at 147 because you only wanted a payday. He's not being honest with the public. Then Errol Spence Jr. goes on to explain why Terrence Crawford won't be next. Now, he said easier fights to make are the ones right in front of him. The Sean Porter, and a potential Thurman Pacquiao, potentially. And that's if Thurman signs on to that. That's if no one gets injured. That's if everything goes right. Okay. Then Errol Spence says, once I unify 3 belts, I'll go see Crawford. So let's break down how Errol Spence Jr. can unify 3 belts. Right now, Errol Spence Jr. has the IBF. Then, let's say he's successful against Sean Porter, he'd get the WBC, so he'd have 2 belts. He's not rumored to fight Sean Porter until September. And this is something that came out of Errol Spence's mouth. Errol Spence recently said in an interview that he'd be looking to fight sometime in September, possibly in Dallas. So if Errol Spence Jr. fights in September in Dallas, there's not enough time for him to have another fight in 2019. As you see, Errol Spence Jr. typically is only fighting 2 times a year. So if Errol Spence Jr. is only fighting 2 times a year, and then he fights in September, and against Sean Porter, then Keith Thurman, that fight wouldn't happen until 2020. And that's if Keith Thurman is not injured. That's if Keith Thurman takes the fight. So what if Keith Thurman doesn't take the fight right away? Keith Thurman has been saying for years he'd fight Errol Spence. Keith Thurman has been saying for years he'd take the Errol Spence Jr. fight. So if you see the trend that's developing is the same thing that Keith Thurman is saying is the same thing Errol Spence is saying about Terrence Crawford. It's the same verbiage, same language, same excuses. just different people. Keith Thurman talks about the comeback, in November 2018. And he also states that he's not respecting Terrence Crawford at 147 pounds. I find that very interesting. And even though he talks about not respecting Terrence Crawford at 147, that's the same thing that Errol Spence Jr. just said. Errol Spence Jr. stated that Terrence Crawford's unproven at 147. So if you have guys who are willing to fight guys that are smaller, that are not as good, and Terrence Crawford has a belt, then why not fight him? Why not fight him? Why a big deal about being proven at 147 or being respected at 147 as long as you have a belt, right? You see, Keith Thurman just fought Josecito Lopez, so clearly you don't care about standing or ranking. And if you're Errol Spence Jr., you just fought Mikey Garcia. You fought a Mikey Garcia who moved up 2 weight divisions to fight you. So clearly it's not about stature at the welterweight division. But at least Terrence Crawford's a champion, and you'd be unifying, and it'll be a massively successful fight. But let's keep going. Errol Spence Jr. in 2018 stated, I don't think me and Keith Thurman will ever fight me. And that this is a direct quote. Well, I mean, that's the fight that's been offered to me in regards to fighting Mikey Garcia, and I think that's a big fight in Dallas. And when Sean Porter, I thought that fight was going to happen. It somehow fell out. And with Keith Thurman, he's going to stay injured as long as I keep winning. So I mean, I don't think me and him ever going to fight. He mess around and retire, I'll get that WBC belt. Now think about his statement right there. Now this was just 2018. He said, I don't think me and him ever going to fight in regards to Keith Thurman. So if you don't think that you and Keith Thurman are ever going to fight, and you said you will not see Terrence Crawford until you get 3 belts, how long do you think it's going to take before you get that chance at Keith Thurman? Because if you don't even think that you and Keith Thurman are ever going to fight, then what does that say about the Crawford fight? That's a very, very interesting statement. But then Keith Thurman, just like Errol Spence Jr., comes back and states, hey, I'm willing to fight this kid. I'm willing to give him a shot. But his words don't match his actions. Then you see Keith Thurman, focused on a comeback, will target Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford in the future. Now, this is at the end of 2018. And this is a direct quote from Keith Thurman. I like the year 2020 because 2019 is the get back year. 2019, Keith Thurman has to remind you, who Keith Thurman is, why Keith Thurman is one of the baddest men at 147, and why you need to always mention me when you mention others, and hopefully put my name first. Now, let's think about that. So he's already set the clock back to 2020. So we know at a minimum the Crawford-Spence fight cannot happen until mid-2020. And that's at the minimum. That's assuming Keith Thurman fights Errol Spence first quarter 2020. That's a big assumption. Because honestly, we don't know when or if Keith Thurman will ever fight Errol Spence Jr. We don't know how Errol Spence Jr. weight will break down. We just don't know. And so here's another statement from Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman ranks himself as number 1, Errol Spence number 2, and he said everything else is debatable. He said, I've stated many, many times I don't give Bud Crawford any credit at 147, yet he hasn't got any credentials off of me. And that is fine. And so since he's easy work, go get the easy work. Similar to Errol Spence Jr. downgrading Terrence Crawford. 11 months ago, according to Boxing News 24, Errol Spence says, I'll take Terrence Crawford's belt. 6 months ago, Keith Thurman says Terrence Crawford isn't a threat. Very interesting thing. But yet 2 years ago, Terrence Crawford was wanting to fight Keith Thurman as his first fight at 147 pounds. Think about this. Terrence Crawford wanting to fight Keith Thurman at his first fight at 147 pounds, going after a unified world champion in your first fight. They know he's a threat. Terrence Crawford is ducking no smoke. According to Michael Benson, Terrence Crawford, it was mentioned by, Keith Thurman again. And Keith Thurman states, I like Terrence Crawford. I don't see him as a threat. Jeff Horn, Amir Khan could beat that guy. Terrence Crawford beat both. And I honestly think that Jeff Horn would beat Amir Khan. I think Jeff Horn is very durable. Jeff Horn should be at 154 pounds. He's a big welterweight. He's a big guy. And I think that he could potentially give Keith Thurman hell as well. I mean, if Josesito Lopez almost stops Keith Thurman in the 7th round, what do you think that Jeff Horn could do? A big, rugged guy. Let's be honest and unbiased. Bob Arum proposes a 50-50 split, a joint TV deal to make the Terrence Crawford-Errol Spence super fight. That's a hell of a deal. 50-50, the same type of deal that Deontay Wilder is begging from Anthony Joshua. And he's willing to do a joint TV deal, not being only one-sided, not trying to take the biggest of the purse. But it seems like Errol Spence Jr. is wanting to delay the fight, not really wanting to engage in serious negotiation. Another article printed, the ball is in Errol Spence's court. Boxing News 24 does another one. Keith Thurman even says that Thurman versus Errol Spence is not worth one title. It isn't worth 2 titles. It should be worth 3 titles. But the question is, how long will it take to get those 3 titles? Then we go back to what Errol Spence Jr. said before Terrence Crawford came into the welterweight division, when he was looking to move up, before he was looking to face Jeff Horn. And he honestly and openly stated, and he tells Terrence Crawford, you get a belt, we can make the fight happen. He has the belt. It's a big payday. Why is the fight not happening? Why are you putting 2, 3 fights ahead of him? It's very, very interesting. Errol Spence Jr. stated that his goal is to unify the welterweight division in 2018. But first, Lamont Peters. So that's fine. I can understand. Take Lamont Peterson, but your goal is to unify the welterweight division. But yet you take and fight Mikey Garcia. Yet you say you call out, Keith Thurman, you call out Sean Porter, you're trying to make those fights happen, but no one wants to fight you, but you're not busy calling out Terrence Bud Crawford. Then, after you get done with Mikey, you call out Manny Pacquiao. Are you really, really, really interested in unifying the welterweight division, or just taking what is perceived to be the easiest fight? We know that Errol Spence Jr. wanted Manny Pacquiao, and we know it was a clout-chasing move. But here's the problem. How much time does Errol Spence Jr. have in the welterweight division? Because at the end of the day, Errol Spence Jr. said it himself. He has to move up eventually. 2020 and possibly even 2021 could be the soonest that you could get an Errol Spence versus Keith Thurman fight. And we know how Keith Thurman is with delaying fights. Errol Spence Jr. might have to move up. And this is a direct quote from Errol Spence Jr. I'm definitely going to move up. And I feel that Jermel's going to move up pretty soon after he does what he has to do at 154, like after he fights, Jared Hurd and gets all of the belt. But I've still got a lot left at 147. He also stated, so I won't be moving up probably for the next 2 years. If there's still money at 154, I'll move up earlier. I'm thinking about moving as high as 160, and if there's a smaller guy that wins a belt at 168, then I can probably do that, but I think I'll stay at 160. So he talks about moving up as high as 168. He talks about moving up within the next 2 years, but if you notice, this was printed in 2018. It's already 2019, so that would be assuming in 2020 he'd be moving up. But he also stated, if there's a big money fight at 154, he'll move up earlier. Recently, Oscar De La Hoya has really come out and stated that Canelo Alvarez versus Errol Spence Jr. would be a super fight at 160 pounds. As you see here, Errol Spence Jr. already stated that he'd love to fight at 160. He's going to fight at 160. That will be a fight. That will be a weight that he'll fight at. And he's already stated that he's willing to move up for the money. There's no bigger fight in boxing than fighting Saul Canelo Alvarez. Period. And so at the end of the day, we can see the writing on the wall. We can see what's happening. We can see Errol Spence Jr. wanting to move up, avoiding a Terrence Crawford fight, the most dangerous fight in the division. We can see him with a lot of similarities and trends to Keith Thurman, looking to move up, but only for a huge payday, only when it's beneficial to him. And see, you have to look at it honestly and unbiasedly. The writing is on the wall. Errol Spence Jr. will move up before he faces Terrence Crawford. And you know what? I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm 100% wrong, but I can only go by the facts that are presented and the things that he has said in interviews. That's all I can go by. And he needs at least 3 belts before he fights Crawford. Those are his words. So you have to be honest and unbiased when you analyze this. And at the end of the day, Errol Spence Jr. has already stated that he'd be willing to move up to 160 pounds and fight Canelo Alvarez. He told Oscar De La Hoya to call out, as he always does. But as you can see, the writing is on the wall for Errol Spence Jr. to move up to 160 pounds, face the biggest name in boxing in Saul Canelo Alvarez for the biggest payday of his career, and completely avoid and duck Terrence Bud Crawford.
You better not duck me, son. You better not duck me, son.
What? I'm on the grind till I get it. On the grind, nigga. Mind on my digits.